Hello, everyone, and welcome back from spring break. I hope you had a good rest and everything went well. I wanted to talk this week a little bit about writing the budget for your grants. I know some of you have already posted about when you've looked at the sample grants that you found how challenging the budgets look. So, three main things I want to tell you about grants. And the first one is as you write your budget for your grants, you aren't going to know a lot of stuff. And some of you mentioned that as a challenge. I'm just expecting you to do the best that you can. I don't, you don't have all the details. You are going to want to always work with other people when you're doing the budget. You're going to want to talk to the people that, whatever organization, the people who actually do the accounting and financial and setting up all those rules and regulations. You want to talk to the people that are at the funding organization. They may very well have samples to show you. So you're not going to want to do this by yourself for sure. So, but what we're doing for this class, we're just learning about it. This is probably your first stab at it. You're going to do the best you can. So don't worry that I'm going to, think you have to know everything there is to know. Second, I always for the budget and for the timeline. A lot of you, you're going to want to have some kind of plan as to when or how you're going to do things, whether your grant asks for it or not. So for both the budget and the timeline, I always think in terms of start at the end and work backwards. So what are you trying at the end of whatever your grant time is? You need to show some kind of something's happened. You've created a project. You've made a difference in people's lives. Whatever your goals are. So start with that at the end. So start at the end and work backwards. So whatever grant money, whatever the amount is you can get, that's going to be your end point. And so, you got that much money, work backwards from there and to show that your money, how you're using your money is getting you to the goal. Hopefully that made sense. Another way to think about it is when you do your narrative, I just pulled this one up. This is a sample narrative. Oh, where'd it go? This is a sample narrative. And another thing I would recommend is as you're writing your narrative, also as you're writing your program goals, if those are a separate section, whenever you're writing your narrative, when you are writing something that you're going to have money for, make a note for yourself that either out in the margin or on another sheet of paper. And, this is a cost. You're going to have to buy something, or you're going to have to pay somebody, or you're going to have to hire a director or whatever. So as you're writing the narrative and as you're writing your goals, make note of those things as you go along. So it's kind of like you're doing it hand in hand at the same time. This narrative I found interesting too, because at the end, and this is something else I would recommend that you do. See, they end with a paragraph, and they probably have this in here because for this grant proposal, the instructions probably say in the grant narrative, talk about your budget. They probably say that in some way. So that would be my guess as to why this is in here. But I like this paragraph here. So what you might want to do as well, because you're going to have some kind of a chart or some kind of a table where you put down the actual numbers, right, for, how much you're going to spend on stuff. But this is a good way to start when you're thinking about your budget. See, they have said, the budget includes, and they list specifically the different things that they're going to spend money on. And that's another thing you want to make sure that you do. You're not going to just give them numbers. You have to explain what all the numbers mean. You can't just say, we're going to hire a director. It's going to cost $70,000 or whatever. You've got to explain every everything that you have in the budget as well. Now, where you do that, it's going to vary, but keep that in mind too. I found a couple of sources that you might want to look at that are useful and helpful. This one's an OER is Open Education Resources. These are things that are freely available on the net that you don't have to pay for. It's a thing that's becoming more and more common in education. And it's got some good, if you click on here, it's got quite a bit of, good advice, good tips. You can go through and look at this. I mean, this adds a lot to what we've talked about, what we've already looked at. And then they talk about budget. Here they talk about budget. And then they've got a sample budget. So if you're thinking, okay, how do I even start a budget? Here's an example. And if you want to do something just this simple, the grants that you guys are looking at, the example grants, you may like the budget, the way it's set up, you can use that. But this one's a very simple one. So I wanted to just show you that. And if you need me to, just let me know. I can put this link in the announcements or somewhere if you can't figure it out here on the video. Here's another. This is the government. There's tons and tons of great resources on the government websites, and it's all free. Well, it's paid for with tax dollars, so, but it's freely available. And so this has got some tips on it too. And I wanted to point this out to you to kind of go along with what I was talking about when you write the program narrative. Your budget should justify all expenses and be consistent with the program narrative. So don't think about your budget separately. It all interweaves together. So it's kind of like two sides of the same thing. Your budget's going to tell the same story as your narrative does. So you might even think about, putting your budget in the same order as you talk about your narrative. They may want you to do it different. If so, that wouldn't work. But that's one way to think about it. And then this list, and how far you want to get into the weeds of the budget, that's kind of up to you. Like I said, do the best you can. This one talks about indirect cost. I'm not going to go into detail about direct costs and indirect costs. That's the kind of thing you want to work with somebody on, unless you've got business background or you're an accountant or you know how to do all that stuff. Whenever I do this stuff, I always get, the people that know to help with that and even, write some of that up. So, there's always good resources out there in terms of, those people who have the expertise and can help you with that part. So that's an example from the government. And here's another one. Let's see. I think they're trying to sell you something here, but they've got some good information about budgets. Researching funder requirements. So look at your grant and see what can you spend money, what are you not allowed to spend money. If you're doing a state funded grant, how you can spend money at the state level is very different from how you can spend money at the national level, the government level, the national government level. And a lot of times it doesn't make sense, and you'll be like, well, why can't we spend money in the state level? And you just don't even want to try to make it make sense. A lot of times it's just that's how the money is spent, and you figure out which pile of money you can use to buy what you need. So, but look and see what your grant will pay for. And they talk about, areas of funding. And they get into here. How are the people that are giving you the money? Because remember, that's our main thing. We want to think about These people, we're trying to get them to give us money, and we don't want them to have to try to figure out the budget any more than we have to, want them to figure out anything else. Remember that person who's reviewing your grant, and it's the end of the day, they worked all day, they're in their pajamas and drinking wine, so you got to make it make sense easily and quickly. Let's see what else is here. Okay, here's a list. Here again, whatever you end up having your cost be, that's going to vary depending on your grant, what they require, what they will pay for, what you need for your goals. Here again, aligning your budget with project goals. This is another way of how I was saying when you write your narrative, you're going to want to write the costs along with that. You're going to want to decide the cost along with that. They have to go together. You definitely don't want to have something in one or the other that is not connected. If you talk about it in one place and don't talk about it, if you talk about it in the narrative but you don't have the budget funding for it, that's going to be a disconnect. Same way if you have money in the budget for something but you don't talk about it, explain it, then that will be an issue. That'll be a hole. Connecting dollars to outcomes. What are your outcomes? What are your goals? So whatever it is you say you're going to do, that money, you have to show that spending that money will get you to your goals. And if, like I said, if you want to learn more about direct and indirect. Okay, let's see, budget narrative. See, it's not just numbers. You're still telling a story. So think about it that way. Here's a checklist, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, these are just some things I wanted to point out to you that, might be helpful to you as you work on writing your grant section for your proposals. But it looks like y'all are doing a good job. So keep up the good work, and I'll be back with more soon.